Mike Troy, Editorial Director of Progressive Grocer. Excited to be joined today by Chad Lindolm. Chad is Vice President of Sales with Clean Energy, and we're going to be talking about sustainability and grocery supply chains. Supply chains are a hot topic right now. Sustainability is a hot topic, and Chad's the perfect person to shed light in both areas, and then kind of look at where we're headed. He's been with Clean Energy for about 18 years, joined the company about 6 years after it was founded in 97 by energy industry veterans T. Boone Pickens and Andrew Littlefair. Now, a lot's changed in the energy world since then and the supply chain world. And today, Clean Energy is viewed as a leading renewable energy company that's focused on the procurement and distribution of renewable natural gas, but then also conventional natural gas, such as compressed and liquefied. So then there's acronyms for all of those. So we'll be touching a little bit on RNG, CNG, and LNG, but mainly, I believe, RNG. So what does really any of this have to do with grocery and sustainable supply chain? That's what we're going to find out with Chad. Chad, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Just tell us a little bit about how Clean Energy has really evolved as a company and the rebranding that you underwent recently. Just bring us up to speed on the recent changes that were made and why, and who Clean Energy is today.
Sure, Mike. Thanks again for having me. We've had quite a journey over the last 25 years, and through that journey, we have expanded a national footprint of fueling facilities that actually also includes Canada. That's now over 560 stations, both private access and public access, to serve a whole host of fleet operators in 40 plus states and all the provinces across Canada. And through that journey, we've been heavily involved in CNG, compressed natural gas, as well as LNG, liquefied natural gas, because of its attributes: being cleaner, being sustainable, being domestic, and being right here as a resource for us to utilize and tap into. What's happened over the last few years has been real exciting, and that is, as a lot of us know, a major focus in initiatives around sustainability and emission reductions. And while we've always been proud that natural gas in its compressed or liquefied form does provide significant emission reductions at the tailpipe, 90% reduction as compared to the current heavy-duty engine standard, we wanted to move further into the greenhouse gas emission reduction space. And by moving into renewable natural gas, we were able to do just that. And now that has become really, even beyond clean energy, a main focus of the natural gas vehicle industry. Just in 2020, over 350 million gallons of renewable natural gas were dispensed across the US into fleet operations. Why is that important? Renewable gas has the ability, from a carbon standpoint, to actually reduce those emissions by over 300%. So carbon intensity is something that is looked at very closely now, and the acronym there being CI. We actually have a fuel that can be anywhere from 0 to negative 500 CI. So we have a carbon negative solution that actually pulls you below zero, and certainly can play a very, very important role in a number of different companies looking at achieving emission reductions and net carbon reductions over the next decade or so.
But the negative piece you touched on there is super interesting, because we do hear a lot about, especially some major retailers talk about being regenerative companies. So I think we come back to that. But what are you hearing from grocers, retailers of food and consumables, about their main pain points when it comes to improving the sustainability of supply chains?
Certainly looking at whether it be scope 1, scope 2, or scope 3 emissions, what they can directly control with their own fleets would be scope 1. What impacts those operations from fleets providing services for them would be scope 3. Both are important. And while certain initiatives to install solar panel lighting, certain initiatives to plant trees are important, what we see is to have immediate and significantly quantifiable reductions. They're looking for some easier pathways, and we found that by moving into renewable natural gas with the actual vehicles that are transporting the goods, they can achieve that in a much quicker time frame and in a much more economical time frame without disruption to the supply chain, without having to go through a major transition in how they look at their logistics arm and run their business on a day-to-day standpoint. It's been pretty exciting to be a part of.
Could you just take a second and touched on it at the start, but just the difference between RNG, how you derive that product, and then CNG and LNG, the key differences between those three types?
Absolutely. Glad you brought me back to that. So RNG really is a drop-in fuel. Nothing has to change on the engine, the storage system. These are OEM products. RNG is really natural gas, what we say natural gas reimagined. And it comes from natural sources, primarily landfills, dairy farms, wastewater treatment plants. So it's the compounds that create natural methane. That methane is captured without being emitted into the atmosphere, which is great. It is run through a cleaning process and injected right into the existing natural gas pipeline network that runs in abundance across our entire country. That fuel source then can be nominated to specific fueling facilities. And in doing so, we're able to quantify the exact amount of volume that a fleet can consume, still either as a CNG fleet or an LNG fleet, and they get credit for that RNG fuel, much like if you were to elect to buy green power at any of your facilities.
You mentioned gallons earlier, but I'm thinking gallons is a unit of measure of liquid. Was that like an equivalent measure to, is RNG comes in a gas form, right? Or no?
It does, gaseous form. It is the same fuel that is powering much of our homes, heating the water on the stovetop. It is a gaseous fuel in its compressed form. The energy conversion that we use as an industry is taking that BTU content and converting it into a unit of measure that's very familiar with fleet operators in the transportation space. So when we refer to gallons, we're referring to a gallon of natural gas that's the energy equivalency and how it's priced, similar to a diesel gallon of fuel.
So it derives its renewable characteristics from the fact that it's coming from, where you said, landfills and dairy farms, which is kind of fascinating, as opposed to being harvested out of the ground, I guess.
Absolutely. And that's a significant initiative that we are under as a company and our industry is under. There's nearly 200 projects that have been identified or under development to bring hundreds of millions of gallons more of RNG to the marketplace over the next few years. We have a number of initiatives in place with partners that include BP as well as Total to go out and identify these projects and ultimately bring that supply source to the marketplace and dispense it into fueling facilities that we already operate or facilities that we will be building for fleets in the very near future.
Now, I believe I heard you say it's a drop-in solution. So I'm wondering, as a grocer, with a fleet, what's involved in me getting started with RNG? What sort of what are we talking about there? What's that look like for an operator?
It's a simple transition. So fleet operations that we speak with, we certainly work with them on analyzing their fleet. Where are your vehicles domiciled? What are the routes they're going on? What's the range? Where are some of the nearest fueling locations if this is something you want to dip your toe in to start, as opposed to jumping right in with a backlot private fueling station for, let's pick a number, 100 trucks. There's a lot of fleets that move into this space at a slower pace to ensure that they are comfortable and familiar with technologies. Drivers have buy-in on that, technicians have buy-in on that. They go out and have a positive fueling experience, and the engine, which is a Cummins OEM engine, proves itself. It can meet the demands of the duty cycle. We have a great track record of doing just that. So there are fleets, one of which we just recently worked with and made an announcement, KE Distributors, that is active in the grocer space, that is doing just this, has put vehicles on the road, is fueling in the current network, and we are supporting them through that with vehicles and RNG, and looking further into how they can expand their operation while lowering their carbon footprint. With other fleets, we work closely on providing them with opportunities to demo vehicles, right? Get behind the wheel, run them on real routes, not just a ride and drive event, but run them on real routes. And we have a rolling fleet of available vehicles that can be utilized by these transportation companies to see for themselves that they will have a familiar experience with this technology that has a long-standing track record of dozens upon dozens of fleets that have run this in their operation for many, many years.
So just real quick on maintenance, if I'm burning RNG versus diesel, what's the situation look like there?
Well, you're burning a lot cleaner fuel. You're burning a lot cleaner fuel first and foremost. So there's no after treatment devices on a natural gas engine, and in doing so, you have different maintenance intervals and arguably less maintenance intervals. So what we see typically is a wash on maintenance costs. So you're not incurring additional maintenance costs, certainly. Where the real savings comes from, beyond the savings to the environment, is economics on fuel price. We got a stable domestic supply source, and fleets on average are saving well over $1 a gallon on fuel. So that goes right to the bottom line. We're able to then show fleets that not only are they doing something that's good for the residents, the customers, constituents in their communities by operating a greener fleet, but they're also doing something that makes business sense for their bottom line.
That's awesome. I want to measure all of that. Metrics matter in sustainability. Everybody has to be able to document how they're reducing their carbon footprint. Is that a straightforward process? So when I go to compile my ESG report, I've got some good data to include?
Absolutely. We get very involved in that to support fleet operations as they're putting out their annual reports. We provide on a monthly basis the pathways, is a term that's used in the industry, to ensure that they did, in fact, have nominated, purchased, and consumed green gas, RNG. We analyze and provide what that carbon intensity of that RNG was. And these are programs that are highly regulated and overseen ultimately by both the EPA as well as CARB if you're here in the state of California.
Okay, last question. We can kind of maybe end on this, and I'm curious your thoughts and predictions, and I don't know if you're going to want to go there or not, but we've seen obviously the price of a barrel of oil is really, I think it's around $80 lately. It's gone up a lot. I just saw a report this morning from the EIA, the energy group, government group, about their forecast for fuel prices this winter and heating cost and all that sort of stuff. So what's your crystal ball tell you about where we're headed with some of these traditional carbon products? Because I'm thinking as those keep going up, that makes the use case for RNG even stronger going forward.
Well, no question. I wish Mr. Pickens was still here with us to give you a bold prediction, which he was right more times than not. I will do my best with just a small piece of his knowledge. And as a company, we certainly look at where oil's headed, where other even alternative fuels are priced, and alternative technologies are priced in the marketplace. And there's no question that anyone can pick up the paper over the last few weeks. And unfortunately, if you are a large consumer of some of these traditional energy products, it's not looking good. And we see that. We would tend to agree with it. Frankly, as you alluded to, Mike, as we see that picture, it only paints an even better, stronger economic picture for renewable natural gas, in that price spread on the fuel, what an operator ultimately pays at the pump as compared to diesel, continues to get better, which just means more and more savings to their bottom line. And the economics combined with the green sustainability piece really package itself nicely for more and more interest in our industry, which is exciting.
All right, very good. Well, let's end on that note. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts on energy, sustainability, supply chain, RNG. We'll be keeping an eye on the space and look forward to reconnecting with you at some point in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.